Who's gonna take care of this old man, huh? It's totally different outside and inside us.
The man who threw those words at me with a glare was John, who had recently been promoted to director. He joined the company 10 years ago, just as I was about to be assigned overseas. And we only learned each other's names and faces today for the first time. I would appreciate your guidance. Indeed, as he said, there are many differences between working inside and outside the OS. And in 10 years, the way things are done in the company had changed with the times. I felt angry at his outrageous attitude during our first meeting, but I suppressed it and responded to John. He's going to have a rough weekend, so I'll let him do what he wants for now. I thought. My name is Robert, and I'm already 60 years old. I had been working outside thus until recently and just returned home today. After being away for 10 years, the cityscape has completely changed. Things that were there are gone, and new things have appeared. But there were also memories that hadn't changed. Wow, this diner is still here? I might go in for old times' sake. Surrounded by new buildings, the old-fashioned diner seemed out of place. It's where my uncle used to bring me often when I was a kid. Now it's run by the son of the owner, but the flavors have been faithfully passed down. Enjoying the unchanged taste, I reminisced about the past. In fact, I don't know, or rather, don't remember my parents' faces. They both passed away in a car accident when I was 14. Fortunately, I wasn't in the car at the time because I had a sports match, so I'm still alive. The ones who took me in were my uncle and his wife. They were both 24 years old at the time. They were newlyweds and would have wanted to spend more time together, but they accepted me without a grimace.
From now on, we're your parents.
We're glad if you think of us as your real parents, even though it might be hard to accept right away.
True to their word, they treated me like their own son. Later, I learned that my aunt, Nancy, had difficulty conceiving. That's why they took me in and raised me with more love and care than anyone else. Even without a biological parent-child relationship, our family of three was happier than most. My uncle, Bob, founded a construction company when he was 30. Although it was initially struggling, he leveraged his communication skills and the talents of his employees, and now it's a major company. After graduating from college, I also started working there. It wasn't through connections. I secretly interviewed, unknown to Bob. I'll never forget his surprised face during the final interview with the president. Many companies might check resumes in advance, but Bob valued character over paperwork. To avoid any preconceptions, he made it a point not to look at the resumes until the day of the interview, so he didn't know about me. I managed to get the job and became an employee at Bob's company. However, I don't publicize that I'm the president's nephew. This is by mutual agreement between me and Bob. I don't want to be favored because I'm his nephew, and Bob doesn't want any employees to go easy on me because of it. He has gathered a team of exceptionally talented people, sometimes strict, yet kind. It's like they don't know the word compromise, and everyone strives to reach higher every day. I've also honed my skills to not fall behind my senior colleagues. I've obtained almost all the certifications that might be useful later on. I literally spared no time for sleep to study. Uncle, or rather President, could you let me go overseas? At 50, I asked Bob one day. The company, now a major player, had expanded outside the US and had succeeded in various projects. Thus, it had several branches overseas. There are places overseas with skyscrapers that rival those in urban areas of the US, not only in size and number, but their appearance is also appealing. The architectural style is different from that in the US, so they look completely different. Anyone working in the construction industry would surely aspire to it. I'm thinking of studying it locally and incorporating it back home.
Overseas. You only speak English, right? And more importantly, I was thinking about having you take over soon.
It's okay. I've been squeezing in language studies for that. If you're considering me for the next president, it would surely be useful for the future, right? Since becoming interested in working overseas, I started studying languages secretly after work. On my days off, I even attended a school. Thanks to that, I passed the internal company exam for an overseas assignment. I've acquired enough language skills not to struggle in daily life. Still, you never know if it's enough until you actually live there. But I just couldn't give up.
Ah, you're stubborn when you set your mind to something, huh? Fine, go for it. You've got 10 years. Make sure you study hard. I won't allow a quick return.
Thank you. I'll study hard to live up to your expectations.
Well, I'm only 60 years old myself. Being fit is my only asset. I'll keep the company going for another 10 years or so.
And so, my venture overseas was decided.
Robert, take care of yourself, okay? And try to get in touch once in a while.
Nancy, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm a 50-year-old man after all. On the day, Bob and the others came to see me off at the airport gate. I couldn't help but grin at Nancy's words, as if she was seeing off a young child.
A parent's child is always a child, no matter the age. Do your best.
I will. Thinking back, I commuted from home during college and had lived with the three of us ever since I got a jobs. They were only 10 years older than me, so it felt like they were more like friends or siblings. I had never thought about living alone before. That's how natural it was for me to be with Bob and Nancy. I boarded the plane, reminiscing about how truly fortunate I was to have such great parents. After a 13-hour flight, I arrived at my destination. Wow, the real thing is definitely more impressive. The landscape, different from back home, thrilled me more than ever before. The staff at the office welcomed me warmly and eagerly guided me, clueless as I was. Even dealing with an old guy like me, they were all really dedicated employees. During my stay, I actively participated in various projects. Of course, at first, I was relegated to menial tasks and assisting roles. But after 2 years, I started to be entrusted with smaller projects, and I became increasingly motivated. While learning overseas methods was my primary goal, I also aimed to introduce domestic techniques. Among the stylish buildings, I ventured to incorporate unique domestic legal benefits. Surprisingly, this was well received, and I started getting more feedback on housing designs from clients. Our company was the only one doing this kind of construction method in this country, and our performance steadily climbed. We became so busy that we had to hire more staff. Such a whirlwind of days flew by, and before I knew it, 10 years had passed. Regretfully, I left the locale. Phew, that was delicious. But look at the time. I need to head to the office. As I ate, recalling various memories, time flew by. I had just returned from abroad, yet I already missed my time on assignment. I thought as I got into a taxi. Wow, This place has really changed too. Our company, which had continued to grow, had moved to a new location a few years after I left for my assignment. As I looked up at the building, a woman came out of the entrance.
Hello. You're Robert, right?
Bob had a crucial meeting today, so he asked his secretary to show me around the office. I guessed this woman must be her, and I greeted her back. Yes, that's right. Nice to meet you.
I'm Emma, the president's secretary. Please follow me. I'll show you around the office.
Prompted by Secretary Emma, I stepped into the office. It was bustling with many employees and visitors, filled with energy. Mixed feelings of joy about soon taking over the company and anxiety about whether I could truly support it filled me. She guided me through various departments, and finally, we arrived at the design department. Having been away from the domestic scene for 10 years, I was unfamiliar with the current situation. That's why I was set to work here in the design department for about a week. Here, I could learn about current demands and share the knowledge I had acquired.
Excuse me for interrupting your work. Could I have a moment, everyone?
The employees, who were surrounding a blueprint, turned towards us at Emma's voice. Perhaps due to departmental transfers, I didn't recognize a single face. It seemed the company was focusing on training the next generation, as most of the staff were young men and women.
Oh, Emma, what brings you here?
I brought Robert, who has just returned. Robert, this is John, who has been the department head since last month.
Oh, is that so? And where are you from? I can't believe it.
John, standing slightly behind Emma, looked at me skeptically. I stepped forward to meet his gaze and introduced myself. Nice to meet you all. I'm Robert. I look forward to working with you.
What? Seriously? Just an old guy, huh?
No, he is.
Before Emma could explain who I was, I stopped her. He would find out about me eventually. I felt it was better this way, to see the true nature of this department.
Come on, you're kidding, right? Who's going to take care of this old man? It's a whole different ballgame outside the US.
He had joined the company 10 years ago. At that time, I had just been assigned to work outside the US, and we were only meeting for the first time today. To be able to speak so rudely to a stranger, I almost admired it. I wondered why Bob, who values character in his employees, had hired someone like this. And yet, he had been promoted to department head in just 10 years. Still, he was Bob's choice. So I kept my anger to myself. Yes, I'm quite ignorant, so I would indeed appreciate your guidance. Indeed, as he said, things are very different outside the US. And in 10 years, the internal workings of the company had also changed with the times. While I felt angry at his uncouth attitude upon first meeting, I contained it and responded to John. He would learn his lesson by the weekend. So for now, I would let him be free, I thought.
Hey, old man, unlike you, I'm busy. If you want me to teach you, you need to be useful. Come on, go buy some lunch at the convenience store in front of the company. Whatever's fine.
While I was willing to provide work-related support, I hadn't come back here to be John's workhorse. I was about to decline, but then John continued.
Ah, just so you know, you don't have the right to refuse. If you want to retire here in a few years, don't go against me.
His overbearing attitude made me want to reveal my identity. But seeing such a man in charge made me worry about the department. I decided it was best to empty my mind and endure until the weekend to see what would happen.
Robert, I'm sorry. Since he was promoted to head of the department, he's always like that to his subordinates. I was in your position until recently. As for lunch, whatever you buy, he'll complain. So really, anything is fine.
As I was getting ready to leave the desk, a young employee approached me. I see. Thank you for letting me know. I returned with some sandwiches, but as expected, he complained about them. Despite his demeanor, John was capable at his work. One might think he'd delegate his responsibilities, given his attitude, but he handled his duties diligently. Can I help you with anything else?
Huh? I'm better off doing it myself than asking an old guy like you. I have better taste, after all. My designs have been highly praised by our clients. If you're free, why don't you look through some of the projects I've worked on in the past to study them?
As he coldly dismissed me, he pointed towards the shelf where the documents were stored. Though his manner was questionable, I was genuinely curious about his designs. So I did as he suggested and picked up the documents. True to his claim of high praise from clients, each design was indeed impressive. It even made me feel that working together, we could create something even better. And so, like a workhorse, I continued my duties until the weekend arrived. That day, an inauguration party for the next president was held in the company's large hall. The employees were not yet informed who the next president would be. Those gathered in the hall whispered among themselves, speculating, could it be him or her?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for gathering here. First, let me express my gratitude to all of you.
Bob announced as he took the stage and the microphone. His words were met with applause.
This company, which I started when I was 30, has grown to be called a major player within just a few decades, thanks to the efforts of all our employees. I cannot thank you enough. Now, at 70, I have decided to retire and would like to inform you of this decision.
The crowd responded with voices saying, "Thank you for your hard work." From this alone, it was clear how much trust Bob had earned from his employees.
Now, let us introduce the next president.
Turning his gaze towards the stage wings, I took a deep breath to calm my nerves and then stepped onto the stage. Amidst the applause, there were some murmurs, which was understandable. At 70, Bob was retiring due to age, and here was the new president, also looking quite advanced in years. With only a 10-year difference, we appeared nearly the same age. If I were among the employees, I would be questioning this too.
Let me introduce him. This is my son, Robert. Some of you may know him, but most probably do not.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Robert. Many of you might wonder why someone of my age. However, I am eager to further enhance this company. I ask for your support. I want to utilize the knowledge I gained abroad to grow together with all of you. My speech was met with applause, but one person shouted out loud,
Wait a minute. This guy is the next president? You must be joking. And how can he be the president's son? That doesn't add up.
It was John who blurted this out.
Well, it's complicated. He was my nephew, whom my wife and I adopted as our own son. So yes, he is only 10 years younger than me. Sure, he seems old to many here, but I believe no one has a greater passion for this company. I was supposed to retire 10 years ago.
10 years ago, I insisted on going abroad to learn how to grow the company further. That's why I started from scratch with language studies. I am grateful to the president for respecting my decision. I expressed my gratitude to Bob. When I was introduced as his son, some whispers of "so it's just nepotism, after all" were heard. But when I spoke about studying abroad for 10 years, those whispers turned into expressions of surprise. It's rare for someone at 50 to want to study abroad, especially starting language studies from scratch. It seemed my dedication was communicated as the murmurs of disapproval faded.
But still, I came to this company because it's headed by Bob. Sorry, but I can't see myself following someone I know nothing about.
Didn't you work with him in the design department this week? Haven't you seen his capabilities?
Bob asked as John swallowed hard, his throat moving visibly. This week, I had been running errands and hadn't really been involved in any design work. Therefore, John knew nothing about my skills or what I had learned abroad. Sir, I'm still a novice from his perspective. It's natural for him to think that way.
What do you mean? Surely, John, you are talented, but
I mean, don't say unnecessary things.
I took a deep breath, knowing if I were to make my point, now was the time. Then, let's have the department head guide me. There's no other way to gain his recognition. My unexpected response caused John to turn pale, and he started sweating on his forehead. The design department employees struggled to hold back their laughter at his reaction.
sorry, but I can't see the whole picture. Are you saying my son is not fit to be the next president? What happened this week?
Well, let's talk about it later, shall you? After all, today we are also celebrating the president's farewell. Eat, drink, and enjoy, everyone. Cheers. Though I had initiated this situation, I felt it was unfair to spoil the mood for others in different departments. With that thought, I forced a toast. Around Bob, many longtime employees gathered, buzzing with reminiscences. I wandered around, sipping wine and greeting the heads of various departments. And not a single person showed me disrespect. Everyone seemed to endorse me, trusting Bob's judgment as I was his son. About 2 hours later, the party wound down, and volunteers, including myself, began cleaning up. Of course, I took the lead in participating. Since the party had started at noon, we wrapped up by the evening. Afterward, several of us from the design department, along with myself and John, were called into the president's office. John, who I heard liked to drink, seemed sober, probably preoccupied with what was to come. His face was pale.
Sorry to bother you all, but I'd like to continue our earlier conversation. Is that all right, John?
Bob called him out, and John visibly tensed.
Well,
John stumbled over his words, his response hesitant. Bob's irritation grew with each faltering reply.
What exactly about my son do you think is not suitable for a president? If there are areas for improvement, I'll instruct him. For the future of our company, I want your honest thoughts. If any other staff have something to add, please speak up.
The other employees exchanged uneasy glances, biting their lips. They seemed to have things to say, but were perhaps worried about repercussions from John. I haven't really been able to do much this week. I've just been running errands. So saying I don't know anything would be more accurate, right, John?
hey, you're saying too much.
John snapped, his face now turning from pale to red.
What do you mean by that? Speak clearly.
Errands are also part of the job, aren't they? Honestly, I can't believe an old man could design well, so I thought I'd teach him from scratch.
Feeling cornered, John surprisingly spoke his true thoughts.
Teaching from scratch. Sure, you're talented. That's why I scouted you for years. But favoritism aside, my son's design sense is also exceptional. Your design directions are different, so it's not even fair to compare them.
But even if he studied abroad, whether that's applicable here, we have our own merits here, and I think it's wrong to squash them.
Later, Bob told me that before joining us, John had worked in the design department of a rival company. There were various rumors in the industry, good and bad. A scandal could spread fast, making it hard to stay employed in the same field. However, all rumors about John were positive. His designs had been featured in magazines and had won numerous awards. Bob had met John at an industry networking event and was so taken with his designs that he began an earnest recruitment effort. Initially, John declined, but eventually, he was persuaded by Bob's persistence. I believe John felt Bob's passion for his work, which is why he joined. People chosen by Bob shared his enthusiasm and dedication to their jobs. His work ethic is indeed commendable. That's why John was concerned that I, having returned from abroad, might undermine the qualities he cherished in his domestic approach.
Do you know what our overseas branch has built recently?
No, I haven't checked. The designs abroad are completely different from ours here and not to my taste.
Hearing this, Bob whispered something to his secretary. Emma quickly fetched a magazine from the shelf and handed it to John.
Take a look at page 5. The feature there showcases something my son designed.
John flipped to the specified page, and his eyes widened in shock.
This is
Displayed were photos of a building unlike any other, created by our team abroad. An innovative structure that blended foreign aesthetics without overshadowing the domestic style. John's surprised exclamation drew the attention of other employees, who now also peered at the magazine.
Amazing! I could never have thought of something like this.
Can domestic and international designs blend so seamlessly based on usage?
Everyone voiced their surprise and impressions. Though it was a work I was proud of, being praised so intensely right to my face made me somewhat uncomfortable.
Why didn't you tell me about that the moment you got back? Then I wouldn't have resorted to such measures.
You mean you wouldn't have resorted to such actions? I preempted John's statement, guessing easily what he was about to say. I've heard from other employees that every time a newcomer joins, you impose personal tasks on them with your high-handed attitude, barely letting them do their real jobs, right?
What? Is that true? I've been concerned about the high turnover rate in the design department over the past few years.
Bob now raised his voice in surprise, looking at the faces of the employees, who nodded in response.
That's because I'm trying to live up to the president's expectations. To inherit my abilities, they need to work as my hands and feet, right?
Design talent varies from person to person. Merely copying the same things is just mimicry. We need to cultivate each individual's talents, not just teach them to replicate.
There's a risk of being accused of plagiarism just for similarities, whether to lead or follow. That's all it is. Of course, good aspects should be passed on, but handing over everything won't develop a person's talents. It's about blending what you think with what you learn and creating something new. That's what design is to me. You can be inspired by various works and create your own originals. making them work as mere extensions of yourself. That mindset is wrong. It's just making them errand runners. It could even lead to social issues if not handled properly.
That's an exaggeration.
Decades ago, physical and verbal reprimands might have been part of training, but times have changed. Now, even trivial matters can escalate into social issues, adding to the already heavy responsibilities of supervisors who must be careful in guiding juniors. But if guided sincerely, motivated individuals will respond positively. If such individuals remain with the company, that's enough for us.
Exaggeration. Newcomers are quitting rapidly. Every one of them was a promising individual I selected. If they had been properly trained, they might have shone brightly.
Our company has a home-like atmosphere and is well regarded for its ease of work. We offer good benefits, and our turnover rate is low, making us a popular company in the industry. That's why we receive over 100 interview applications each year. We filter applicants through a basic written test, but mostly decisions are made during interviews. After 2 rounds of interviews, the final decision is made during a one-on-one meeting with Bob. He hires those he feels are right for the company. Some years we hire dozens of new employees, and other years, just a few. We've always been particular about our talent. That's why I couldn't tolerate John's behavior.
Quitting over just being treated as errand runners? Those who quit lack grit. Maybe I should conduct the interviews from now on. I'll find people with motivation and grit.
Enough already. I knew well the hardships Bob endured to establish and grow this company. There were times it almost went under, but he overcame those challenges with the employees he chose. Judging people isn't something that can be learned overnight, especially not by someone who looks down on those beneath them. They can't possibly have the ability to discern good talent. Finally, I lost my patience and raised my voice before Bob could. How can someone like you, who doesn't even regard others as people, possibly discern good talent? Didn't you fail to recognize my potential? Isn't that right?
That's because you kept quiet for so long. Who would think an old man like you had any talent? Can't you think more objectively? I won't follow someone like that.
Sure, I may look like any ordinary old man, but we all know that judging by appearances is wrong. Yes, that's fine. I don't want you to follow me. Do you understand? I am now the president of this company.
What? You don't need to follow me. I am the only talent your respected father ever scouted. Are you planning to fire me?
His continued arrogance stemmed from his belief that being scouted meant he couldn't be fired. I too wanted to create new projects with John, having been inspired by the documents he worked on. However, keeping him in the design department as is would hinder the growth of the next generation. Being just an employee might mean focusing on immediate success. But I'm the president now. I need to look to the future. My conclusion was that he's no longer needed here.
Hey, say something, will you?
John, feeling desperate, pleaded with Bob for help. However, Bob's response wasn't what he hoped for.
I'm no longer the president. Besides, I agree with him. It's a waste to lose your talent. But if we consider the future of the company, it's the obvious choice. We can't have someone who negatively influences the next generation.
What? I haven't caused any scandals. How can you fire me? That would be a social issue.
If we fired him now, it could indeed be seen as wrongful termination. After all, he hasn't caused any specific problems or disputes with clients. If he took us to court, we'd likely lose. and I'm not planning to fire him. No one said anything about firing you. You're being transferred to a different department. Your new assignment is in General Affairs Division 2.
What? You've got to be kidding. General Affairs Division 2 is just a backwater. Why would I be sent there?
General Affairs Division 2 is tucked away in a small back room within General Affairs. The work there involves stapling documents or shredding papers with personal information. Depending on the season, it might also involve sorting gifts for clients or arranging letters. In other words, various menial tasks. On slow days, there's really nothing to do, and nobody wants to be transferred there. Typically, whoever in General Affairs has free time handles these tasks, but it's also where employees on maternity leave or returning from parental leave and working reduced hours are assigned. Whether you quit or stay is up to you. Feel free to decide, I said coldly, turning to leave.
Ridiculous. Are you trying to crush my talent? If you really care about the company, I'm essential to the design department.
Exactly. That's why this is your only chance. If you can reform, we might let you return eventually. With those final words, I left the president's office.
So that's the deal. It might seem lenient, but that's one of his good qualities. If you want to design, you have to change. Sorry to keep the rest of you. You can go home now. Take care.
John, I dislike you, but I admire your designs. I hope you keep designing, no matter what form it takes. Excuse me.
Those were the words of a young employee who had been burdened with personal tasks until my return. He, too, had joined the company, drawn by John's designs.
Damn it. This isn't how it was supposed to be. Why am I stuck in Division 2?
Despite Bob still being present, John forcefully opened the door and slammed it shut with enough force to break it. The following week, as per my directive, John was transferred to General Affairs Division 2. He endured it for about 3 days, but then lost his temper due to the sheer tedium.
I quit. I'm not the kind of man to sit around shredding paper. I'll resign and show what I can do at another company.
With those words, he tore up the documents meant for the shredder. Then, scribbling a resignation letter, he stormed into my office.
Here, are you satisfied now? I'll achieve greater things at another company. Just you wait and see.
That's unfortunate. I didn't try to stop him or ask for reasons. I simply accepted his resignation. Thus, John left our company. From what I heard in the industry, he's been interviewing at other companies, but apparently, he's been uniformly unsuccessful. While his designs are of high quality, his character seems to be a deterrent. I suspect he's probably disparaging others in interviews, boasting about his own talents. Meanwhile, I, now the president, am experiencing a whirlwind of days. Our company has primarily been involved in commercial facilities, but with the knowledge I gained abroad, I'm thinking of venturing into residential projects. This will likely require establishing a subsidiary, and the challenges are mounting. Come on, have some fun without thinking about work for once. Despite retiring, Bob, who is remarkably energetic for someone who's 70 years old, along with his wife Nancy, who has stayed healthy without any major illnesses, were being supported by me. As a gesture of my gratitude, I gifted them a trip to a resort hotel.
Thank you. We'll take your kind offer and relax.
Well then, shall we go, Nancy?
I quietly watched as they boarded the bus. At 60, I became president. Still a novice despite my age, I aspire to be a president like Bob, trusted and loved by all employees.